Welcome. This is the Punk CX podcast. My name is Adrian Swinscoe, and I'm an advisor, best-selling author, Forbes contributor, and general explorer of the service and experience space. The thing I'm really interested in is how do we create organizations that produce better outcomes for both their customers and their people. This podcast has been running since January 2011, and so we have a big archive to explore. Check out the archive at adrianswinscoe.com. That's enough from me. Let's get into the interview. Welcome to the next edition of the Punk CS podcast. With me today, I have Mike Upton, who's the Chief Digital and Tech Officer at First Tech Credit Union. And this is a bit different, this one, before I bring Mike in, because I'm recording at PegaWorld. We're recording live from Vegas, which is a bit kind of different. But so I'm here at PegaWorld, just hanging out, listening to all the different stories, and the folks at PegaWorld were nice enough to introduce me to Mike. Hi, Mike. Hello.
Hi, Adrian. Thank you.
And we're going to have a bit of a quick chat about Mike's story and First Tech Credit Union's story, and about what they've been up to. So, Mike, hello.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Tell me a little bit about yourself.
So, as you said, I'm the responsible for technology and digital at First Tech Credit Union. First Tech, we're the sixth largest credit union in the country.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you about the credit union bit, because I get the credit union, because we have some of them in the UK, and they're a bit like building societies, and I understand how they kind of work. So it's almost like having members and investing in sort of lending kind of the members' kind of money. But I didn't get the first and the tech bit. So if you can explain that would be really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's good you know about credit unions. We like to think of ourselves as banks, just better.
No comment.
We're the first tech, where the tech comes in. Our credit union, the field of our membership, are the employees of some of the world's leading technology companies. So we are the credit union for the employees at Microsoft, for Amazon, right, for Intel, for Hewlett-Packard, even Nike is where our field of membership comes from. And so we really focus on that technology sector and the tech worker. And as you said, right, a credit union is wholly owned by its membership. We don't have shareholders. We don't raise money in the capital markets. So our mission is really driven around delivering value to our membership.
Mm-hmm. Couldn't get more kind of customer-centric than that, really, could you?
We hope so. That's the idea.
Ultimately, you're held to account by your members.
Each member owns an equal share. Everybody's an owner.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, you're talking at PegaWorld about telling your story, and you're talking about taking a pragmatic approach to customer service, which I really like. I mean, and we were talking before, and it sort of resonates with me because we're talking about transformation and stuff, and it's transformation, whatever. Because it feels to me like everybody's always kind of evolving. It's a continuous transformation, as it were. But I really like the pragmatic bit, because it cuts to the outcomes, is like the impact. So I wanted to understand a bit more about what you meant by taking a pragmatic approach to customer service transformation.
Yeah, so the idea behind pragmatic approach is, even though I'm the chief technology officer, I find that I end up talking more about people than I do about technology.
Right.
Especially employees within the organization, the culture within the organization, and how do you move people from the comfort zone of where they've been to where our members actually need us to be.
Right.
And what happens too many times is, people get caught up in the tech, they get caught up in a tool, they get caught up in, we're going to talk about AI, we're going to talk about a cloud, we're going to talk about strategies, we're going to talk about philosophies. But what they don't really talk about is, how do you take those concepts and make them real and actually deliver something of value?
Yeah.
And so that's the approach that we're trying to talk about, is really humanize the change element and the approach to how do you deliver value, how do you actually deliver tangible things, how do you make things that matter to your customers, to our members.
Can you tell me a bit more about that? Because I know that's the thing, is that there's also other data and research that talks about transformations and transformational projects, and how oftentimes many of these big transformational initiatives don't actually deliver on their objectives. I mean, there's different pieces of research. Some of it comes from McKinsey that says sometimes north of 70% of some of these projects don't fail to meet their objectives. when you dig into that, and it's been the same for decades, is they oftentimes miss out the crucial people bit, like bringing people kind of like with you, kind of the engagement, the communication, the collaboration, all that sort of stuff. So can you tell me a little bit more about what you did in order to bring that to life? Because as you say, it's all very well to talk about big maps.
Yeah.
And the technology and the possibilities and all these different things. And then people are sat there going like, yeah, right, whatever.
Yeah, they don't know what it means to them.
Sure.
Right? It's too big. It's too broad. It's too ambitious. It's too nebulous, right? So you need to have the strategy clearly. But then what you have to do is you have to be able to break that down, and you have to be able to talk specifically to, in our case, our staff. What does it mean to you? What problem are we trying to solve? Are we clear on the problem that we're trying to solve?
Right.
Because if we're not clear on that, then the chances that we're going to deliver anything are out the window. So the problem that we were trying to solve is we were not doing as good a job with our members in terms of living up to our promises to them. So again, we say we're going to do these things. We say we're here to help you. We say we're going to deliver these services. But when we really took a look at ourselves, we were failing in a lot of places. And one of the biggest areas we found in servicing our members, we've got branches, we've got our digital channels, we've got our contact centers. Our frontline teams were using SharePoint documents for service requests. So if you gave us a call and you talked to one of our agents, they'd go up to SharePoint, they'd drag down a document, they'd start typing in and filling in the service request, and then they'd fire it off to a back office team, right? Probably at a different corporate location, who's got a stack of these things. Maybe they got to it, maybe they didn't get to it, maybe there was a little data entry.
Hang on a second.
Yeah.
So you're basically telling me that you've got, it's a bit like, that's like something out of like a digital version of something out of the kind of the 50s. It's like, take a memo. There's a phone call, take a memo. And then you fill in a form and send it off.
That is exactly it, right? And then you got the room full of agents back there frantically working the memos, grabbing the wire, right?
Oh man.
And so there was no way for us to really understand whether or not it got fulfilled or whether we actually met our members' need.
Right.
Right. And so while we say we're here for service, again, we were really struggling with how do we consistently deliver high quality service. So we started by focusing on our employees. And, if we can make it easy for our employees, it's going to make it simple and delightful for our member. And so we used, in this case, right, we identified that Pega had the business processing automation engine, and that's sort of their core DNA, is that decision engineering and that automation of workflow. Prior to Pega, we were on Salesforce. They were a CRM, but they really didn't meet the need in terms of that business process. And to make this come to life, we needed to get our staff behind it. We needed to get the people right so that we'd get the technology right. And so the very first thing that we did on the big, grand, ambitious transition journey was we said, we're going to convert all 85 of those SharePoint static forms, and we're going to convert them into automated workflows.
Right.
No more filling in, no more data entry error. Now we've connected our front office with our back office, so the agent has it seamless. It's all pre-filled. They can fire off that request. They can see the SLA. They can see the processing time, and we can see that comes all the way full circle to conclusion with our member. It's simple. It's basic. It delivered value to the agent and it delivered value to the member. And once we lit that flame, once we lit that spark, our frontline staff became evangelists, and we love this system. We love this platform because it solved a real world problem for them that they could see.
But you know what? So I get that and I applaud that. But I think that it feels to me that you've done one more crucial thing, which many people miss out on. And it's something that continually bugs me, is that when people talk about having a vision for what they want to achieve, now more often than not, most people's kind of visions is some sort of assemblage of 5 or 6 buzzwords that's come out of a multiple choice list of sort of 10 or 12 of them. You put them in together, you go hit random order, and then it's like, there's your vision statement. And people are like going, I have no idea what that means.
That's right.
But the idea when you can take that, or take a vision where you can, in terms of you start seeing it from the perspective, through the lens of the experience of either your customers or your employees, and you start to tell yourself stories about what it's what it's currently like and versus kind of what you want it to be like, then you can start to really identify, actually, we now know where point A is, and now we know where point B is, and then we can figure out a path to get from A to B. More often than not, people don't have that clarity at the end points, therefore it's finding it difficult to plot that strategy.
Yeah. Well, and I agree with you, right? And that's why, again, we try to take a more practical approach about it, because, everybody has the buzzwords and they always talk about these grand visions and these grand strategies. And again, everybody gets lost, right? We are looking to make things easy for our employees so that it is simple and delightful for our member. That's our vision. That's our grand strategy.
Yeah.
Now, how do we do that, right? Well, we go and we identify what are the problems that are getting in the way of us doing that, right? So we have to take an honest look, which is hard for a lot of organizations to do. You got to take an honest look. Are you living up to your promises? Are you delivering on the things that you aspire to deliver on? Let's get clear on the problem, because if we're clear on the problem, then we can work on how do we solve for it. Oftentimes, people talk about innovation and transformation and they get overwhelmed by all that stuff, right? And it's too broad, it's too nebulous, too squishy. They don't even know where to start. They also think that it's got to be revolutionary. It's got to change the world. Like little micro innovations that matter, that mean things to people, that produce results. That's innovation. That's bringing strategy to life. And that is more pragmatic and more practical. It is more digestible. It's more human. And again, all the great tech in the world won't matter if you can't get your team on board and it doesn't produce a result that makes their life better and makes the members' life better. So if you can find those opportunities and focus in on those and start there, right, that's the approach that we've taken.
But there's also that kind of thing around, is like, hopefully not necessarily less radical change, but like a more sort of like incremental approach to radical change is more likely to be accepted by kind of people, rather than going, here's a massive step you got to take, and then look at that and go, well, no, I'm not going there.
Yeah, right.
But if they're going, oh, it's a here, and it's a here, and it's a here, and it's a here, and then it's a bit like, oh, I can see how that works, and then you can get excited about it, and you generate momentum and things, and it reminds me of that. There's an old sort of like story that was, I don't know if you're a fan of sort of road cycling or Olympic cycling.
Oh yeah.
Well, there was remember the Team Sky or Team GB that used to dominate sort of the Olympic cycling. And then they went into kind of Team Sky, and they had this thing, this guy, Dave Brailsford, had this idea where he sort of said, well, actually, you know what, if you think about performance, a sort of a 10% performance improvement or a 10% gain is sort of like a standard thing in most kind of like business planning. Sort of, I want you to get 10% more next year. And people are like, okay. And you're like going, but 10% of kind of something, even if it's a big thing, it's a heck of a lot.
It is.
But he said that actually, but do you think, if he said, look at it another way, he said, do you think if you could possibly find 10 areas where you can make a 1% improvement? And it's like, it's a different way sort of doing it. And he said, well, yeah, that feels more achievable, digestible, approachable. And so they came up with this approach around the aggregation of a series of marginal gains. And it's this kind of thing that allowed them to dominate. I mean, obviously, they kind of went out and did it, and they got in front of people, and then all of a sudden, kind of people were like going, they cottoned on to what they were doing, and then they started to kind of copy them, and then they catch up, and then they have to do the next thing. But actually, it's a fascinating approach, and I love the idea that how that's kind of what's the pragmatic is kind of translated into those kind of small things. Tell me about the outcomes. Tell me about the kind of like the commercial kind of outcomes, the business outcomes, the productivity outcomes, the kind of the things like the improvement in attrition and all these type of things, because this is where the rubber hits the road. Right?
It is where the rubber hits the road, absolutely. So in our business model, our calculation is for every minute that our contact center staff spends on the telephone with one of our members, we have to add another agent.
Okay.
So if I can reduce the call time, the contact center time by 1 minute, it goes maybe to your example, right, of the little incremental 1% change, that saves us the need to hire an FTE. Right. Well, there's value in that, right? You can quantify, in our case, right, it's small, but then you carve another minute off. Right. And then you carve another minute off. And we went from 20-minute hold times because our staff was so busy filling out forms and, trying to call the back office to figure out, did you get it? Maybe getting some help with some of the more complicated things. Right. So we were able to reduce our contact center time from 20 minutes initially down to about 15. And then we kept looking at places where contact center staff had to put fingers on keyboards, had to call back office. And we started a journey of let's automate each little task to take that out of the way, or let's bring the data forward so you don't have to go look for it, right? And so now we're at about a 8-minute call time. And
12%.
we've got
12 minute improvement. Okay.
It's a couple $1 million for us. Now, again, we're a $17 billion organization. We're the 6th largest credit union in the world, or in America. And so, a couple $1 million in savings just in this servicing element got everybody excited about, hey, let's go find some other places to do it. So where are we spending a lot of time? And it's jamming up the process. So we went to our wires, our payments team.
Okay.
So at First Tech, to send a wire, there were 105 process steps. I mean,
a what now?
It's 105. It's ridiculous. When I say it out loud, I'm almost embarrassed, right?
That tops the kind of the admission from the kind of previous keynote that was earlier today, where they were talking about 50 different things, and I was a bit like, oh my word! I'm not going to name names, but it's like, wow.
But that's the reality of a lot of places, right? Because they've got this legacy heritage, and everybody means well, and every part, is supposed to play its role. But when you stepped back and you looked at it, we put it on paper. That's a problem. 105 steps. Well, we used the Pega platform to automate that. There are now 5 steps.
Right.
So what we did is we made the payment operations team, their job much, much easier. We made the experience much more consistent. We made the processing much faster, so the members benefit from it because now wires are a lot easier. Now, they didn't have to go through 105 steps. The member didn't. But you'd be surprised how many hurdles we put in front of them just to get the information in for us to send out a wire. Again, it doesn't sound revolutionary. It doesn't sound transformational. But that translated into 5,000 hours of saved payment operations time on an annualized basis. So the thing we're learning is finding those opportunities where there's a high degree of manual intervention and a high degree of labor. It's not easy for the employee. Lots of mistakes are being made. Generally translates to a poor experience for the customer. So go find those, and then you can quantify and put the business value on it, right? And then I love that analogy, and I'm going to steal it about, the if I did 10 things 1% better, right? And that's exactly the approach that we're taking. We're looking for all the little things that we can make better to win over the staff, to improve the customer experience, and tie tangible business value to it. Then when I go back and I talk to my CEO, I'm able to show him very clearly, we've improved the member experience, job 1. We've made it easier for our staff, job 2. And by the way, over the 2.5 years that we've been running, we have hard dollar savings of over $17 million that we were wasting before because we were busy, but we weren't very effective.
Nice. I mean, I think that's there's your numbers of like 5,000 hours or kind of X number of things, and it all aggregates up to like $17 million kind of dollars worth in card savings, which is kind of fantastic. So, so what's next?
Yeah. So what we're working on now we're working on personalization.
Okay.
It's the next big buzzword. Everybody has to be in on it, right? Everything's got to be personal. It's that one-to-one. But for us, again, we need to treat each individual member the way that each member needs to be treated at the moment that they need us. Yeah. And so we're looking at how do you operationalize that? How do you take it from that grand, everybody wants to personalize? So we've partnered with a couple of different firms. We brought in some outside help because we don't know everything and our staff doesn't know what they don't know. And so between the Pega relationship, and Pega's actually pointed us in the direction of some various different groups that we've brought in. We took our entire executive team through a workshop to demystify what does personalization mean? How does it show up? We brought in the folks to talk about the customer decision hub and how do we marry up that customer decision hub with our data platform and our data science team. And we picked deposit products, and we're running a little proof of concept pilot today to determine how we can use all these tools to increase the number of deposit products that new and existing members can get from us, because we are meeting them with a personalized offer, a personalized invitation, at the moment that they are interested in that, right? So whether they're in our contact center, whether they come into our branch, or whether they're looking digitally.
So it's not just about campaigns.
It's not about campaigns.
It's about interactions and what happens at the point of interaction. And it could be about campaigns, but not exclusively about campaigns.
Absolutely. So let's say that you, Adrian, you're a member, and I know you'll be a member after this podcast. That'll be awesome. We'll get you set up.
I'll give you $10.
There it is. Let's say that you're a member with First Tech, and you call into our contact center, or you go online, right? Let's say you went online today. We have a bump CD. Right? The rates are going up. We can have you have material savings. What we can do in the moment is we can say, well, Adrian, we realize that you've got X amount of deposit dollars with us today. Would you like to accept a bump CD? We can bump you from your current rate up to the new rate of 5%, where you can earn X more on it. Now, we've already pre-qualified you. We already know that you're a member. We already know that you've got funds. And now what we can do is we can give you practical value in the moment that you happen to be talking to us, in this case digitally, or through the contact center or in a branch. Sure. So that would be an example of where we're taking personalization, because we know you and we know that we can give you more value by bumping up your savings rate.
Sure.
And so that's the pilot that we're proving. Does it work? Can we make it work with all the back-end systems? Can we make it work down to that individual level?
So it's the pilot's more about, can you get all your processes and kind of systems in line to be able to facilitate kind of that?
That's exactly right.
But less about kind of how it's received. Or it's also about how
it's also how it's received, right? I mean, did we do it the right way? Did we present it the right way? What was your response and your reaction to that? We want to learn that. Yeah. So by narrowing the scope, by getting really hyper-focused, right, on something that delivers value to our member, it's important to us. We need deposits, right? Everybody needs deposits. So let's pick that use case. Let's rally around that. Let's build that model. And again, if I get 1% lift, right, then I can do that with my other product sets.
Sure.
And we can learn, and then we can continue to learn about you, as opposed to, a segment. Too many people, we fall into, you're a Gen X, you're a millennial, that's not good enough, right? Oh, you're between this age and you have this income. Well, that's not good enough. We may be the same age. We may have generally the same income, but what you're interested in, what I'm interested, they could be very different things.
Sure.
So how do we get that personal? How do we deliver that? And then how do we fulfill on it?
Yep.
Right. So that's what we get excited about. That's the future. We're not there yet, but we're feeling pretty good.
Excellent. I mean, I think what I like about it, and so thank you, Mike, for for sharing your perspective, because actually I think the thing I really like is you've been really honest about this whole thing around taking a pragmatic approach to it, but then also kind of talking a pragmatic approach to customer service transformation and just your approach to things. But it's kind of refreshing to hear an organization kind of talk about, actually, we're not there yet, and we're not like that, and we don't know much about that, and this is a buzzword and stuff, and we have to figure out kind of what it is, because, the commentariat, as it were, in the industry and the tech vendors and things, almost like we're all guilty of talking about stuff that's on the front edge, but actually that's not where everybody lives.
It's not.
It's where everybody lives. People are going, I should have this system. Like, no, it's all held together with duct tape.
Absolutely.
That's the truth.
That is the truth.
And we're just like hanging on. And actually, that's the real transformative work, is to figure out, not to scare people off, but actually realize that you can take small steps and you can have big impact and all these different things even if you go slowly, but in a committed, focused, deliberate sort of like way. So thank you for sharing that, because I think it's a really important perspective that not everybody's kind of thinking about, Gen AI is going to transform kind of things, but you're going, that's interesting, but it ain't relevant for us right now.
That's right. Well, yeah, if you're not ready for it, then you're just going to have a bigger mess on your hands.
Sure.
And, as we started talking about a little earlier, the secret to the success for this stuff, I keep coming back to, is the people. Because, again, you can have all these ambitions, you can have all these strategies, you can have all this, great stuff. Transforming the way that your staff thinks, the way that they approach problem solving, the way that they can come along on that journey, because it's scary for a lot of them.
Yeah.
Right. They hear all this, AI is going to put us out of a job. Right. And then you break it down and you make it more relevant, you make it more real. You show them how you're solving and making something easier for them so that they can do a better job with our member. Then they love the tech. Because to your point, right, they all run in, I want this tech, I want that tech. Well, if you're not ready for it, if you don't have the change management, if you don't know what problem that tech is solving, right, it doesn't matter. You're just going to have another piece of tech sitting in that big giant spider web that we already have, and we're not going to use it. We're going to get tired of it, and then we're going to run out, and you know what we're going to do? We're going to get new tech, because new tech's always the answer to everything.
Yeah. Still a shiny object.
Yeah. So we got to, we try to make it human. We try to make it real. We try to talk about outcomes, and we talk about what's it mean to you? Because if we can get it to what's it mean to you, and you see it and you understand it, then they jump on board, and then they want more of it. So now it's a lot easier for us when we go and we work with the various different teams. They're excited to see us coming because they know that we've been able to help other parts of the organization. The payment operations team loves us. The contact center team loves us. It's no longer the dreaded, oh, here comes tech to help, right? Tech's always here to help. We're always here. And we tell them, look, we're going to start with some pilots. We're going to start with some small things because we're going to learn. And once you start creating that learning culture and that craving of learning, you've transformed your organization, which will absolutely transform the experiences.
Fantastic. So, Mike, a couple of things before we can wrap up. 2 questions. So, complete this sentence for me. Mike Upton says, if you want to improve your customer or employee experience, you should do this, ... Complete that sentence.
Make it easier for your frontline staff.
Full stop. Thank you. Love it. And also, one final thing is, now this is recorded at PegaWorld 2023. It's been 4 years since we've been here. There's been a whole slew of changes in the world and challenges and all these different things, from, viruses and conflicts and all these other kind of bits and pieces in between. And so the world went weird and has continued to stay weird. And I find myself every morning kind of sort of doom scrolling or trying not to doom scroll. And so what I've been trying to do on these podcasts over recent kind of months is to finish on a question, which asks people, can you tell me the most interesting or surprising or exciting thing that you I've heard or seen, read about in the last week? So what would constitute a good news story? What would be your good news story for the last week that you liked?
That is a fantastic question, and I honestly feel slightly embarrassed that I'm caught up in the doom scrolling, right? And I think too much of us we're all caught up in that, right? And that's because I think they think that's what makes the news. So I'm hard pressed to come up with something that is exciting and delightful that I read about, right?
Or just something that you've just seen or encountered. I remember, I'll tell you this. I remember it's a random thing. So I was walking down the street close to where we live now in Edinburgh, and there was this old shop. And I've told this kind of story on the podcast before. There was this old shop, and there was just there was a carpet shop. And there was a stack of carpet tiles in the window. And there was this little scruffy dog that was kind of lying in the window on the top of these carpet tiles, literally on his back, baking away because the sun was on it. And it was getting magnified. So he was just in the sun going, oh, I love it. And I just thought that was the cutest thing I've seen all week. And I thought that would be my story when somebody else was struggling. But that's a bit of an aside and a repeat. So I'm give you some time to think about it.
No, and I appreciate that deeply, deeply. Again, it's not super newsworthy. My daughter graduated from high school last week, right? And just being at the graduation ceremony and seeing all these kids that we grew up with, all the way from just small, pre-teen or pre-kindergarten, and we watched them journey all the way through elementary school together, and just the joy and the excitement on their faces, right? The enthusiasm of the future and how excited they are about the future, right? It takes us old, sort of, cynical, pragmatic guys, older, and it just warms your heart to be around people that are so full of joy and they're so full of life, and everything is in front of them, and they're so ambitious, and they're just, the joy they have and the joy they share with each other, right? And the other families coming together. It's just those little moments in life. It's about experiences, and I'll never forget that one.
What a great story.
So, yeah.
And so I tell you what, big shout out to Mike's daughter for graduating from our high school, and to all her graduating class.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well played.
Great kids.
And thank you, Mike, for sharing your time and your insight and your expertise with us today, and for sharing us a story about what you've been up to at First Tech Credit Union. That's been awesome.
Well,
Thanks
thank you,
very much.
Adrian. No, it's been a delight. It's super to be here. Thank you.
Wow, what a great interview. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. Find out more about me and the work that I do at adrianswinscoe.com. Do leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. And if you have any comments, feedback, or questions about the podcast, then feel free to send me a message to podcast@adrianswinscoe.com. Do tune in again. Thanks very much.